Hello and welcome to Recyclist. It's April 6th, 2026. I'm your host, Eric Provost, and this is your weekly roundup of all the biggest news stories from the world of waste, gas, and energy presented by Diamond Scientific. First things first, and as always, let's take a quick look at the stock market and several stocks on the move from this past week in the world of waste, gas, and energy. It was a huge rebound week for the stock market this week. Montauk Renewables going into the weekend sitting at $1.14 per share. GFL Environmental was at $44.57 per share. Waste Connections hit $166.08 per share. Republic Services Incorporated went into the weekend at $223.19 per share. Casella Waste was at $87.18 a share. And lastly, Waste Management hit $235.42 a share. But first up in the news, last week we reported on the long-awaited release of the Environmental Protection Agency's Renewable Fuel Standard Guidance for 2026 and 2027, now known as Set 2. Given that its function is to directly dictate the operations of an entire industry, its passing last week, and specifically its historically high volume requirements, have understandably garnered some big reactions from both sides. In a statement, the Engine Technology Forum said in part, quote, "This welcome action by EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin replaces an era of stagnation and uncertainty with a new approach focused on growth and optimism for renewable fuels producers and users alike. Renewable biofuels are essential for powering our agriculture and transportation sectors today and in the future. These new volume requirements reinforce that renewable biofuels are a valuable part of America's energy portfolio, contributing to our energy security and sustainability," end quote. However, the American Biogas Council took issue with Set 2. In their statement, ABC Executive Director Patrick Surfass said, quote, "The EPA's final rule fails to represent real-world biogas growth, which will constrain markets. The action especially undercuts opportunities for livestock farmers, impeding one of the most reliable ways farmers can keep pace in a low-margin agriculture industry and contribute to America's energy dominance. The delay in issuing this rule has already slowed project development, raised financing costs, and stalled rural development at a time when demand for domestic energy is rising," end quote. And speaking of new government regulations, the USDA Rural Business Cooperative Service announced this past week it will not make any new grant awards under the Rural Energy for America, or REAP, program until it updates program regulations to comply with Executive Order 14315 signed back in July 2025. REAP provides guaranteed loan financing and grant funding to agricultural producers and rural small businesses for renewable energy systems like biogas, anaerobic digesters, wind, solar, and others. The USDA says a new notice of funding opportunity for the REAP program will be published in accordance with the new regulations once they are effective. The agency, however, failed to provide an estimated date of when that would occur. And up next, going overseas for a moment, Total Energies, a globally integrated multi-energy company, along with Abu Dhabi Future Energy Company and Masdar, have signed a binding agreement to establish a $2.2 billion joint venture that will merge their onshore renewable activities in 9 countries across Asia. The joint venture will have a portfolio capacity of 3 gigawatts of operational assets and 6 gigawatts of assets in advanced development that are expected to be operational by 2030. His Excellency, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, United Arab Emirates Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology, said, quote, "The UAE has established itself as a global energy leader by delivering at scale, investing with conviction, and building partnerships that endure. Masdar epitomizes that approach. We are proud to have pioneered renewable energy deployment in Central Asia and the Caucasus, and we have an expanding portfolio in some of the most attractive growth markets in Asia Pacific." End quote. And just a quick reminder, Recyclist is a registered trademark of Diamond Scientific, an industry leader in gas analysis, instrumentation, and solutions. Make sure to visit them online at diamondsci.com. That's diamondsci.com. Or you can even set up a personalized presentation just by calling 321-223-7500. Now on with the news. A new paper recently published to Science.org says satellite observations suggest that methane emissions in urban areas may be quote-unquote widely underestimated and could in fact be up to 80% higher than noted in the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's greenhouse gas inventory. Researchers analyzed satellite images taken by the Tropospheric Monitoring Instrument and found that emissions from major urban areas, including New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia, Dallas, Miami, Houston, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Boston, Detroit, and Cincinnati, were emitting up to 80% more methane than reported by the EPA. According to the World Resources Institute, about 45% of net global warming today is caused by anthropogenic methane emissions. And speaking of recent studies, according to the World Bank's new What a Waste 3.0 report, global waste production could increase by 50% by 2050 if countries continue on a so-called business-as-usual approach to waste management. The report used 2022 as a baseline when the world generated about 2.6 billion metric tons of municipal solid waste and said we could be looking at 3.9 billion metric tons by the end of the 2040s. Among the factors cited in the report is the claim that about 30% of waste generated worldwide is not managed properly and is instead dumped or left uncollected. The report also states waste generation is growing most quickly in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia and is expected to rise by 124% and 99% respectively by 2050. And next, in mergers and acquisitions, GFL Environmental recently announced the acquisition of Dallas-based Frontier Waste Solutions, although financial terms were not disclosed. Frontier has nearly 1,000 employees and 665 vehicles in 24 locations across Texas and currently services more than 460,000 customers in major markets including Austin, Corpus Christi, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and others. Frontier itself launched in 2017 via the acquisition of two smaller hauling companies. The company then continued to expand with at least 5 more deals in the following years, including select assets from Waste Connections. Bloomberg estimates the deal was worth about $900 million. And lastly, sticking with mergers and acquisitions, Casella Waste Systems recently announced they have acquired Massachusetts-based Star Waste Systems. The deal includes 3 solid waste collection locations and a construction and demolition processing and transfer station. Star Waste provides residential, commercial, and roll-off collection services to about 80,000 locations in the greater Boston area, as well as southern New Hampshire. Financial terms were not disclosed, but Casella expects the deal to generate about $100 million of annualized revenue. Casella Waste's new CEO, Ned Coletta, said, quote, "We are excited to welcome the Star Waste team to Casella. This acquisition strategically augments our asset positioning and enhances our collection density in the highly attractive Boston market." End quote. And that will do it for your April 6, 2026 news roundup, brought to you by Recyclist. Once again, a registered trademark of Diamond Scientific. I've been your host, Eric Provost, and we will see you back here next week for another brand new episode of Recyclist. Thank you.